Hello everyone, this is Trevor Truck, and today I am going to be recording myself reading a very old story that I wrote, and I think I was in college or just almost out of college when I had written this, and so it's probably not the greatest story that you're gonna hear, but I do believe it can at least be good ASMR. I do like to write, and I write quite a bit. So, I'm gonna go back to my past and discover, or I should say, rediscover, a story that I wrote a long time ago. And this story is called The Encounter. And my best friend actually published this for me. I have the only copy of it. She published a collection of some of my early stories, and I am very thankful for that. It was one of the greatest gifts I've ever received. So, you may hear some page turning, but that's all part of the experience. So I'm gonna start to read Chapter 1 of The Encounter. Okay, here we go. I remember that one summer when I received an unexpected call from my brother's friend John. My brother had decided to spend his time off college by joining his friends on expeditions to find Bigfoot in the redwood forests of California. I felt that was a horrible way to spend one summer. As for me, I preferred the beaches and the surfing. I wasn't about to spend my free time searching for a mythical creature and camping in those forests. What a waste, I thought. Yet, my brother seemed convinced that Bigfoot was real. He'd met a group of like-minded people, and they planned their summer quests to find this creature. I remember what I said to my brother before he left. "Paul, you know Bigfoot isn't real, right?" He just rolled his eyes and said, "You don't get it, Arnold. You don't see things like I do." Well, Paul was certainly right about that. He took off with his group and never looked back. As for me, I took off to the nice beaches. I landed a small job flipping burgers at a local joint. I made enough to spend some time living in what I considered a paradise. Everything was running smoothly until I got that call. I was lying over a towel on the beach, drinking a beer and watching the waves. My cell phone began ringing, and I sighed. The last thing I felt like doing was talking to anybody. I just wanted to soak in the summer heat and listen to the rolling waves that so often put me to sleep. Hesitantly, I answered it. I didn't recognize the number, but I figured I might as well see who it was on the other end. "Hello?" "Hey, is this Arnold?" said the voice on the other end. I hadn't recognized the number, but I knew who it was. I had met Paul's Bigfoot group members before, and I knew that I was talking to John. This John guy was really into Bigfoot, even more so than my brother. I thought he was insane, or at least close to it. Paul simply called John passionate. I suppose passionate would be a good term. I once saw John pretend to be a Bigfoot when he thought no one... when he thought no one was watching. Sorry about that. "Hey, John," I said. "Yeah, it's me." "Hey, I hate to say this, dude, but your bro is lost. We were on an expedition yesterday, and your brother had to piss at some point. He told us he'd catch up, so he walked behind a tree as we continued going on. But as you might have guessed, he never showed up. We went backwards to look for him, but we didn't find him. We tried calling his phone, but no luck." Suddenly, the beach didn't feel all that relaxing. I could already feel myself beginning to rise. intended to ditch the beach to solve this problem. What do you think could have happened? I asked. Was he acting strange? Drugs? Drinking? No, man. He was clean. The only thing we found was a few cigarettes behind the tree he peed by. We tried looking for footsteps, but the grass and shrubbery is so thick. I shook my head as I got up and stared out at the ocean. Only my brother could get himself in so much trouble. So, continued John, I thought I'd let you know, man. Well, thanks. Look, tell me where you're at. I'm coming over to help look for him. John proceeded to give me the location, and I typed away at the GPS on my phone. After that, I hung up and collected my things. I had wanted to enjoy my summer, but it looked like I'd have other things to do. I hoped I'd be able to find Paul as quickly as possible. The last thing I wanted to be doing was trekking through a forest when I could be surfing. Right. Chapter 2. I met John the next morning at a small abandoned gas station, just outside the entrance to a sea of tall trees. John was his usual self. He looked like he was sniffing the air as I pulled in. He wore a heavy-looking backpack and a weird smile on his face. As for me, I packed very lightly, only bringing the essentials in my backpack. I left my car and approached John. "Hey, dude," he said. John looked like a caveman. It was clear he hadn't shaved his face in a long while, and he probably had no intention to do so. I suppose he wanted to look as scruffy as Bigfoot himself. We shook hands briefly, and then he began to lead me through the forest. The trees provided a substantial cover, making it feel like early evening instead of the morning. The sun tried its best to pour its rays through any possible opening. John talked to me about the expedition and all they planned to do. He went into the methods they used to try and track Bigfoot. He talked about using special audio effects and technology to attract Bigfoots. I really didn't care, but I pretended to listen for John's sake. I just wanted to find Paul so I could get out of the forest and back to the beach. It felt like hours, but we finally made it to the rest of the group, minus my brother. There was Professor Stevens, a math professor at our university. He seemed so uptight and professional at our school. Yet he looked calm and in his element in a redwood forest. Next to Stevens was Brad, a friend of my brother's since elementary school. Even as kids, they had a knack for exploring and looking for creatures. I also spotted Harry, another goofy friend of my brother's. You could always remember Harry's name. He wore glasses and had a noticeable scar on his forehead. Each of these Bigfoot experts carried backpacks. All of them dressed like slobs, though I'm sure none of them cared. I greeted all of them, but I didn't want to waste time. I wanted to get to business. "Let's go back to the tree," offered John. It was as good a start as any. When we reached the tree where my brother supposedly stopped to pee, I found a few cigarettes lying there. Apparently no one in the group had touched them. Paul had begun smoking as a freshman in college. It was his form of rebellion. He got addicted to it, but he came to realize that the addiction was taking its toll. He had been trying to quit, the last I heard. I picked up one of the cigarettes. It stood out to me because I saw that one end had been burned slightly. The other cigarettes were left unused, looking fresh and out of the package. "Okay, so my brother pees here," I said, "and it looks like he lit one cigarette, but for some reason he must have dropped everything. I might as well have been talking to a wall. Everyone was talking amongst themselves about Bigfoot, and no one paid attention to me. John actually picked up a cigarette off the ground and took out his lighter. I guess John was a smoker, too." As the Bigfoot group rambled on to each other about their theories, I took some time to think about what might have happened. It was very odd to see a whole bunch of cigarettes without the package. Maybe Paul had opened the package and they all slipped out. Perhaps Paul was too lazy to pick them all up. That didn't seem right. If Paul was addicted, he wouldn't waste those cigarettes. No. Paul must have seen something that captured his interest. "I say we split up," suggested Professor Stevens. It felt so odd to hear him not lecturing us. "Good idea," agreed Harry. "Let's say we meet back at this tree by noon at least." Everyone seemed fine with that idea. I didn't necessarily want to meet back up at noon without finding my brother. It seemed counterproductive. John turned to me and asked me to come with him in his exploration for Paul. I agreed, mostly because I had no idea where I was going. "Remember, guys, be here at noon," said Brad. Everyone nodded in agreement. We all split into different directions. The search was on. And that's all I'm gonna be reading for right now. So thank you for listening, and I'm sorry about breaking character and laughing at my own story, but sorry, some parts just really get to me. Anyway, I'm gonna continue with chapter 3 the next time that I record. So thank you and have a nice day.